You criticize yourself for not having the energy. You scroll through social media, seeing friends living vibrant, productive lives, and a quiet voice in your head whispers, "I wish I could be like that. I'm just lazy." This is a deeply uncomfortable and profoundly common feeling. But what if that feeling of laziness wasn't a moral failing? What if it wasn't a choice at all, but a symptom? A visible sign of an invisible struggle? Many of the behaviors we label as laziness are, in fact, the manifestations of a mind and spirit that are overwhelmed, depleted, and in a state of chaos. The principles of Japanese minimalism, which focus on creating a peaceful and intentional external environment, offer a powerful lens for understanding this internal turmoil. They provide a new vocabulary to help us reframe these so-called signs of laziness as a deeper call for compassion and care. This video is not a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice. Depression is a serious condition that requires a professional diagnosis and treatment. This is simply a compassionate exploration using a powerful philosophy to help you recognize and begin to understand the signs within yourself or someone you love. The clutter that doesn't go away. You look at a pile of clothes that has been sitting on your chair for weeks. Maybe a tower of clean dishes that never get put away, or a countertop perpetually covered in junk mail and unread bills. You know you should put them away. You even have the time. But the simple act feels impossible. You feel guilty, and that guilt becomes a heavy weight that keeps you from starting. We call this laziness, but Japanese minimalism calls this a sign of a mind in overload. The core principle of Danshari is about decluttering. But you can't declutter an external space when your internal space is already in a state of absolute chaos. A mind that is managing chronic fatigue, negative thought loops, and a feeling of hopelessness has no spare energy for simple tasks. The mess isn't a sign of laziness. It is a physical manifestation of a brain that has used all its processing power simply to get through the day. The physical mess is the emotional mess made visible. Decision paralysis in simple situations. You open the refrigerator and stare blankly at the contents, but can't decide what to eat. You stand in front of your closet, and every single outfit feels wrong, and you end up just wearing the same thing as yesterday. A friend asks you to choose a restaurant or a movie on Netflix, and you just say, "I don't care." This is often mistaken for apathy or a lack of initiative. But Japanese minimalism would reframe this with the principle of ma, or the intentional space between things. A mind that is struggling with depression feels like a room without any ma. It is crammed full of overwhelming thoughts, anxieties, and the relentless pressure of existence. When there is no empty space in your mind, there is no room to make even a simple decision. Every choice, no matter how small, feels like an immense cognitive burden. This isn't a sign that you don't care. It is a sign that your mind has no available space to process a simple choice. The "I don't care" is a plea for release from an overwhelming flood of options. A visual diet of chaos. You've stopped noticing the overflowing laundry basket, or the stack of unorganized files on your desktop. Your car is filled with takeout containers from weeks of drives. Your phone's home screen is a mess of countless unorganized apps and notifications that you can't bring yourself to check. This is often dismissed as a lack of self-respect or a low standard of living. But the Japanese aesthetic of kanso, the practice of finding beauty in simplicity, explains this differently. A mind struggling with depression is already a landscape of chaos. There is a deep, instinctual pull away from trying to fix the external mess because it feels like a monumental, impossible task. The cognitive effort required to organize one's physical space feels too immense. The brain seeks only to conserve energy, and cleaning becomes an unnecessary drain. This isn't a lack of caring. It's a deep state of mental exhaustion that finds it easier to exist within the chaos than to try and fight against it. The inability to start. You have a list of things you need to do, to respond to that email, to start that project, to clean the kitchen. You want to do them. You have every intention of starting, but you just can't bring yourself to take the first step. You spend hours preparing to start by watching videos or reading articles, or you sit and stare at a blank page or a blinking cursor. The actual work never begins. This is not laziness. This is a form of emotional paralysis. It is the opposite of usugi, the ritual of the big cleaning. Usugi is a monumental task, but it is completed with a mindset of renewal and a clear purpose. When a person is depressed, that clear purpose is absent. The big cleaning of their life feels like an endless, pointless effort. The mountain of tasks seems insurmountable, and the energy required to even begin feels greater than all the energy they have left. The inability to start is not a lack of will. It is a lack of fuel, the loss of joy in simple things. You used to love the ritual of making your morning coffee, feeling the warmth of the mug in your hands. You used to find peace in tending to your plants, watching new leaves emerge. But now, those small moments feel empty. The coffee just tastes bitter. The plants are just another chore. You go through the motions, but the joy is gone. This is often mislabeled as a loss of passion or a dull personality, but Japanese philosophy would point to the absence of Ikigai, your reason for being. Depression often disconnects us from our Ikigai. The small, simple joys that used to give our lives meaning fade away because the internal system that feels joy is offline. This isn't laziness. It's anhedonia, a core symptom of depression. You haven't lost your passion, you have temporarily lost the ability to feel it. The mundane tasks become just that, mundane, without the guiding light of Ikigai to give them purpose. The inability to rest. You're exhausted, but you can't sit still. You lie in bed at night, your mind racing through a list of all the things you didn't do. Your body is screaming for rest, but your mind is stuck in a state of high alert, self-critical anxiety. We see a person who is constantly on their phone scrolling TikTok or watching TV, and we think they are just wasting time. But in the philosophy of Ma, or intentional emptiness, this is a clear sign of a mind that has forgotten how to rest. A person who is depressed is often trapped in a state of hyperarousal where their nervous system is on constant alert. True rest, the kind that soothes the mind and recharges the spirit, feels impossible. The endless scrolling or constant noise is an attempt to quiet the inner turmoil, not a sign of a lazy mind. It's a mind in desperate search of an escape from its own thoughts. Chronic self-criticism. You look at your home, your work, and your life, and all you see are your failures. You catch yourself thinking, "I'm so useless," after forgetting to take out the trash, or "I'm not good enough," after a minor mistake at work. You berate yourself for not being productive enough, for not doing more, for not being better. This is not a healthy desire for self-improvement. It is an act of self-violence. This is the complete opposite of wabi-sabi, the philosophy of finding beauty in imperfection. A minimalist mind uses wabi-sabi to find peace in a cracked teacup or a slightly worn floor. It accepts that life is imperfect and transient. A mind in a state of depression cannot do this. It sees only the flaws, both in the world around it and in itself. The self-criticism is not a sign of laziness. It is a sign of a mind that is trapped in a destructive cycle of self-hatred, unable to accept its own and the world's inherent imperfections. The disconnect from loved ones. You find yourself turning down invitations from friends and family. You stop answering the phone or respond to texts with one-word answers. You go to social events but feel disconnected, like an outsider or a ghost in your own life. People might think you've become antisocial or that you don't care about your relationships anymore. But in the context of Kizuna, the profound bonds between people, this is a sign of emotional depletion. Maintaining meaningful relationships requires a significant amount of emotional energy. When your internal resources are running on empty, the effort to engage with others feels overwhelming. You are not pushing people away because you don't care. You are pulling back because you have nothing left to give. It is a form of self-preservation, however isolating it may feel. the feeling of being stuck. You feel trapped in a life you don't want, but you can't figure out how to change it. You feel like your feet are glued to the floor, unable to take a step forward. You feel paralyzed by the past, unable to let go of old hurts or mistakes. This is often misidentified as a simple lack of motivation. But the Japanese concept of mono-no aware, the poignant awareness of the impermanence of things, provides a different perspective. A depressed mind often loses its sense of impermanence. It feels as though the present is fixed and unchanging, that the past will always define the future. The feeling of being stuck is not a lack of motivation. It is a profound and overwhelming feeling that nothing can change, and that the effort to try is futile. It is the opposite of the hopeful feeling of a new beginning, the deep-seated exhaustion. You can sleep for 10 hours and still wake up feeling completely drained. A simple trip to the grocery store feels like a marathon, and making your bed feels like a physical feat. We call this laziness, but Japanese minimalism would see this as a complete lack of ki, or vital life energy. The mind is using every ounce of available energy to manage the internal chaos of depression. Just as a car can't move forward with a broken engine, a person can't perform simple daily tasks when their vital energy is being consumed by an internal battle. The deep, bone-weary exhaustion that comes with depression is not a sign of laziness. It is a sign of a mind and body that have been pushed to their absolute limits. It is a plea for rest and restoration. The silent sickness of modern consumerism. We've explored how these signs of mental chaos manifest in our lives, but we must also look at the primary force that creates and fuels this chaos: the relentless push of modern consumerism. We are constantly told that happiness is not a state of being, but a product to be acquired. The advertising, the social media feeds, and the endless stream of new products are all designed to make us feel inadequate, incomplete, and perpetually in need of more. This system is the antithesis of Japanese minimalism. The constant pressure to consume is a direct attack on Danshari. We are pushed to acquire, never to release. This leads to a vicious cycle where we buy things to fill an emotional void, only to find ourselves with more physical and mental clutter, which deepens the feeling of overwhelm and emptiness. This is the lie of consumerism, that more will make us whole. The visual noise of this consumer-driven world is a direct assault on our peace and the principle of kanso. We are surrounded by a visual cacophony of brands, logos, and advertisements, creating an environment that is designed to keep our brains in a state of overstimulation and desire. This is the opposite of a simple, elegant existence. Finally, the entire consumer machine is built on the rejection of wabi-sabi. It tells us that imperfection is a flaw to be fixed with a new product, that our homes and bodies are never enough as they are. This perpetual state of dissatisfaction fuels the chronic self-criticism that is a hallmark of so many of these signs. Modern consumerism doesn't just sell us products, it sells us the sickness of perpetual inadequacy. It makes us feel broken, so we will buy their solution. These 10 signs, when viewed through the compassionate lens of Japanese minimalism, tell a different story. They reveal that what we often call laziness is in fact a series of profound symptoms: a mind in a state of chaos, a spirit in a state of depletion, and an existence without the guiding light of purpose. If any of these signs resonated with you, I want you to remember one thing: this is not your fault, and you are not alone. The first step toward healing is not a monumental act of discipline. It is a small act of compassion. It is the quiet courage to recognize that what you thought was laziness is a sign that you have been fighting a battle that no one could see. The Japanese minimalist philosophy teaches us to take one small, intentional step toward clarity. Instead of trying to fix everything at once, maybe you just pick up one piece of clothing and put it away. Maybe you just sit for 30 seconds without your phone. This isn't laziness. It is the first brave step toward reclaiming your peace.